Our clubs are super intimidating. No, they are across the board. We've got to do a better job at opening them up to people that are, are scared and nervous and fearful, and once they start moving and exercising, it changes their life because it's a flow-on effect, right? Because normally when you start exercising, you haven't done it before, suddenly you start eating a little better.
Right.
You watch what you eat. Maybe I'll go to sleep a little bit, earlier, or I won't have that glass of. It's that flow-on effect.
Yeah.
And I think we've got an opportunity to really reach more people.
Welcome to this week's Escape Your Limits podcast. Our guest today has over 20 years of international experience within the fitness and wellness industry, holding national and international executive roles within the North American and European markets. He designed award-winning fitness environments and innovative programming experiences. He is currently the head of product for the prestigious Midtown Athletic Clubs, and throughout his 8 years there, he developed a world-class team and implemented innovative programming, technology, and education to improve brand awareness, revenues, and retention. In this week's episode, we cover several topics, including why mental health is taking over the recovery and wellness aspect of fitness, the number one reason why hiring up in a business leads to success, and the key areas he sees technology will impact the fitness industry. So please welcome Mr. Richard Earney to this week's Escape Your Limits podcast.
We're at Cybec, and I guess I was interested, what are you excited about? Because we had a brief chat before this interview, and you were very optimistic about things. So
yeah, I am. I'm looking forward to connecting with a whole lot of different people here and just seeing what they're noticing. Just being really curious about what's happening out there. What are you noticing in different parts of, not just here in the US, but globally, what are they noticing? And not just in clubs as well, outside of clubs, but that conversation we just had. The whole industry is changing and evolving now. It's quite an exciting place. But we're still pretty fresh coming out of COVID, So I'm interested to hear how some other club companies are coming out and shaping up and gearing up for the future, right?
Yeah. How have you guys done with it? Because I suppose you're relatively a premium.
We're premium.
Premium club,
yeah,
and
premium
have you, from what I've heard, it took a while for some of the premium brands to, for people to come back. How did you find it? Was it slow and gradual, or was there a time where suddenly things happened? And
I mean, it's definitely gradual. Okay, a lot of it was based around mask mandates and different. We've got clubs throughout different states here in the USA, and Canada. Canada being the slowest to come back, in Montreal for sure. But we're in a good position now. We're in a really good position now, right?
Why is that?
Membership numbers are great. Our whole strategy is to get as many people in front of coaches and instructors into programs as possible, and really focus on improving the quality and quantity of what we call interactions with our people and members, right? And people are flocking back to that. I think people are craving human connection, right? In-person human connection. And our strategy was around, boutique studios in a big box. So our programs and our success, we measure, the percent of people coming into the club and going into programs is just as high now, if not higher, than it was pre-COVID.
What do you put that down to?
Good call. I think I put it down to we're well set up and prepared beforehand, and so when people came back, I think group programming came back the quickest. Mm-hmm. We've noticed a lot of different trends, which I think I've heard some people say similar things. Less people doing cardio, mm-hmm. Okay. We've skewed a little bit younger, and bear in mind we're a premium club, so our price point is higher. So we've skewed younger, younger guys, a lot of younger women lifting, which I think is fantastic. Okay, so free weights lifting, which is great.
Did you see any delays in women coming back at all?
And women coming back?
Yeah, I was speaking to the guys earlier about they were saying it was nice to start seeing more women in clubs, and when you dig underneath that a little bit, and maybe this is wrong, I don't know, but the assumption was that a lot of women are they've got their husbands, they've got their children, they're working from home, yeah. And so actually it came from when I was at the Boutique Fitness Summit, and there was a lot of female CEOs, and the guy was saying, you just don't really appreciate what women have gone through. They've had their partners, which is not easy on its own, and then everything else that goes with it. There's a lot of responsibility on women, particularly if you have a business.
You know, we haven't noticed that at all.
No.
I haven't noticed that at all. But I've definitely noticed younger women lifting.
Right.
Which is great. And also younger women doing more of our strength-based classes in our studios, which I think is cool. So I think, you know, that gives us hope for the future, you know. And also I've found that a lot of younger generations, and we touched on this before, are just more aware of their mental health and overall wellness. Less so just fitness, but wellness. And I just think that sets us up nicely for the future, right?
Right.
So I think it's important that we look at those trends and how we embrace those as an industry, you know?
Yeah. Have you found that there's been anything that is pandemic related, such as a greater, you mentioned the mental health, but just a greater awareness and appreciation of where health and fitness and wellness fits into people's life, and then making, whether that's an investment decision or a conscious decision of probably, just like we've spoken about, you know, in terms of traveling, I'm going to do this differently before. Have you seen any of those kind of shifts at all?
Well, I think, you know, COVID's hit us all hard, you know, and long COVID, you know, I've experienced that. It's brutal, and I'm averagely healthy, fit. I'm fit. If you weren't, tough. So I think what this has done is this, everything we've gone through has made people stand up and go, actually, I probably do need to look at my health. And that doesn't mean you have to go into a gym or a fitness club or to do that. Maybe just going out for a walk or doing something or eating better. So I think people are making better lifestyle decisions as a consequence of what we've been through over the last few years.
Right.
How do we pick up on that? I think we need to, as an industry, we need to pick up on that yet again. So putting more holistic programming that isn't just fitness, that looks at the totality of different things, whether it's sleep and nutrition and providing more education.
Yeah.
You know, because where does the general pops get their education from if they're not coming to us? I'll tell you where they're getting their education from. Is Instagram, right?
Yeah, and or we were talking, I don't know if it was recorded, but we were talking about levels as an example. And so I've learned a lot, just basic things about what to do, types of food to eat, what to do after eating, just simple things like walking. They always talk about the benefits of walking, but I never really appreciated how much a walk does to the food and you know, levels out. Yeah, digestion levels out. You puts your glucose levels down, and just simple little things like that I suppose you don't really class them as what you would get from your fitness club, but it would be good if the brand that you was associated with was the brand that you went to get that information. Just as those little bits.
We speak a lot about this at Midtown, right? Is the industry has gone out saying we want to help people lead, you know, healthier lives. But are we really doing that? You know, what's the message we're putting out? How inviting are our clubs to the average person? Super intimidating, right?
Yeah.
So we've developed a program called Launch at Midtown, and it's very aspiration driven, and it meets people where they need to be met, which I don't think we've done a good job of as an industry, if that makes sense, to really break down barriers. Nowhere in these 18 aspirations we've created, which really give you a guided pathway through our club, and then we create a personalized journey for you. None of them is weight loss. None of them is put on muscle, you know. It's things like, you know, complete confidence. For example, I went on holiday this summer to the beach, and I didn't feel, this isn't me, but hypothetically, I didn't feel comfortable to take my shirt off on the beach this summer. I need to do something about that, right? These are real life situations, and I think as an industry, coming out of COVID, we're more aware of that now than ever before, because we're seeing different people come into our clubs. Different people, so we need to change our messaging to these people. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
It takes time. It's going to take time, but I think we need to do that, right?
Yeah.
And so therefore it can't just be fitness. It's got to be wellness and community, you know, connection. And a lot of what's happened over the last couple of years is we've lost that connection. And how quickly we did. You see how quickly we got into this feeling of being, you know, I'm intimidated of being out in a public space around with a lot of people.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
Social anxiety. So I think we provide a vehicle for people to meet together, exercise together, and something very special happens. It's hard to measure this, and Les Mills have done a great job with this over the years. They were well ahead of their time, is measuring what they call the groupness effect of people working out in a group together and exercising and sweating, high-fiving and smiling, right? And I think we've got to build more positive messaging around that, because, I always say to the people, to our team, stand near the entrance of your club and see how people walk in. Stand there, and when they leave, they're different people. Yeah. Like when you work out, when you finish, you're happier and healthier. You're not healthier, but you're happier, and you're just in a better state of mind.
Right. How do you said about messaging, and I was curious to hear your views on this, because it's something I've spoke to a number of people about. But one of the if you think about the fitness industry, then it's and you have to do like one of those word bubbles. Then things like HIIT, high intensity training, sort of burn. A lot of those words would come out in this sort of. Yeah. How would you describe fitness studios or fitness clubs? And those would, for me anyway, I think those would be the words. But then really when you kind of look at what people need from fitness at the moment, some people, and I was talking to Michelle Dalco about this actually, a lot of people, the last thing they want is to be stuck on a HIIT class. They're very inflamed, they're stressed, they're not recovered, and they actually need to, what he calls, I think, work in as opposed to work out.
Work out.
Yeah, you need to do the opposite, build them up, and then you can start doing that to them. So how do you, because you're a smart guy, you follow a lot of this stuff, how do you balance that out in terms of your messaging and combine sort of what people need against what people think they want?
They think they need.
Yeah.
And that's where the education comes in, right? That's why, when you think of those words that come in here, mood lift, complete confidence, improve my confidence, all day energy. Right. What's the one thing that people over 35 wish they had more of? Energy.
Yeah.
How do you measure energy? You can't. Right? So, I want to be happier and healthier and have more energy. I want to sleep better. Interesting. Now, as we move forward with apps and different things that we can measure, we're going to get more sophisticated, right? And so that's why I'm quite excited about the future. And how do we bake that into our club offerings to offer these holistic sort of programs to get people where they need to be, right?
Right.
So it's not just HIIT, because a lot of the time we don't need to do HIIT training. Doing some stretching and myofascial release or trigger point work is far better for you to recover to perform better.
Yeah. But that's a difficult thing for one brand to do on their own when they're being bombarded with other stuff, isn't it? How do you change that conversation, or do you just focus on your own community? I can see it happening, and I can see more people being aware, but there's still
these niches, right? So I just read an article. You text me and told me to come down here, right? I just read an article in that time. About the two former owners of SoulCycle have just started up a new concept, which is like group therapy. You sit around and everyone gets to have, I think it's 2 to 3 minutes, I'm sorry if I butcher this, but 2 to 3 minutes where they get to speak uninterrupted about what's going on in their life in a group. That's pretty cool,
Yeah.
When we were at the Sweat Festival last year, 2 years ago.
3 maybe.
It was February 2020.
Oh, was it? Actually, that's the last time I was in England, so you're right. Yeah.
Yes, right. I was on a panel with a girl a lady. She was fantastic. You probably know her. I wish I knew her name. Her boutique concept was around mental health. It was a mental gym. It was a mental boutique studio where they work out, but they offer like group coaching. So I think where the industry will go is you'll find these segmented niche. The CrossFit studios will stay there, right?
Yeah.
The bodybuilding gyms will stay there. Great. The performance spaces, but then you're going to start to see more wellness spaces, recovery spaces.
Yeah.
And then a place like us at Midtown, we want to wrap up the best of that into one place.
Right.
And the best in class.
I chatted to a girl last at the boutique event, and she had this concept called drunk yoga. But it was very clever because it great marketing message. I can't remember the strap line, but you're basically getting people that wouldn't normally do yoga by saying you have a glass of wine, and you raise your spirits. But it was like you could have a cup of coffee or a glass of tea or whatever. It's not about the wine, but the wine's a hook to kind of get you in there. Yeah. And what she focuses on, there's this thing called the fourth wall, which is a terminology they use in theatre, where you've got the audience and the actors, and then there's this fourth wall that separates you. But what she said in theatre is that they break this down, and if you go to a place like Vegas or wherever, you actually got actors that are in the audience, and the audience doesn't know, who's the actor, where, and you feel as though you're part of it.
That's pretty cool.
It was great because she was talking about how, as an instructor, what she wanted to do. Typical yoga's, I'm the instructor, so there's this purposely create this wall where, I'm telling you what to do, and I'm responsible for your experience, as opposed to flipping that over where you're responsible for your own experience. But in order for that to happen, we've got to break down a lot of your own limiting beliefs, and you've got to be able to open up and all this stuff. And she does it with corporate events and all kinds of cool spaces. But it was quite interesting because the whole thing about it was this psychological shift that you have. So they're putting you in different places, different rooms, starting differently. Every time you're out of your comfort zone. But when you're out of your comfort zone, you're more likely to do something that you wouldn't do if you feel as though you know what's going on. And I suppose that's interesting for the fitness industry because we're very, you kind of know what you're going to get, and it's always very predictable in some cases. But I think if you can link that mental and physical together by getting people that wouldn't normally join the studio.
Yes, trying to speak to new people. One of the positive consequences that we saw come out of COVID was, people taking these virtual classes at home. We hit a new audience we would never have hit.
Right.
We just wouldn't have. And I'm not talking about we at Midtown, I'm talking we as an industry, right? And this is what I've seen, and I've noticed this, and I've spoken to numerous studios and yoga teachers that have noticed the same thing, is that during the pandemic, people would, and yoga was the easiest, okay, because all you need was a mat. You don't even need a mat, you just do it at home, no weights, puts body needed. So people would do classes at home and they wouldn't have their camera on, and they could practice, and then they got a little bit better and they'd put their camera on and, game on. But what we're seeing now is they come into the club, or they're coming to studios, or they come to us and they go to the yoga teacher and they're like, I've never been to I've seen you in person, and it's like you're a celebrity and I'm coming to do your class. I like that. So it's also like a gateway to get new people in that hadn't tried things before. So I'm hearing of a lot of people, and yoga was the easiest one, I think. And I think that's common across, many clubs I've spoken to. Their yoga programs come back the quickest. Right. And I really do think it's because new people took up yoga, or it's very easy for people to continue doing yoga.
Right. Do you think some of it also could be that having this camera off situation where you're not intimidated? Because I was, I didn't realize how intimidated people are, even of my age, that have not worked out for years. Really, they used to play sports when they were younger and they were like the stud, and then they've just let it go. And they don't want to be in a place where there's, like I'm talking about guys, where there's women that could look at them because they feel so bad about who they are. Mm-hmm. And to go and look stupid is more of a fear than staying where they are.
I think that's the majority of the population feel that way.
Right.
Our clubs are super intimidating. No, they are across the board. We've got to do a better job at opening them up to people that are, are scared and nervous and fearful, and once they start moving and exercising, it changes their life because it's a flow-on effect, right? Because normally when you start exercising, you haven't done it before, suddenly you start eating a little better.
Right.
You watch what you eat. Maybe I'll go to sleep a little bit, earlier, or I won't have that glass of. It's that flow-on effect.
Yeah.
And I think we've got an opportunity to really reach more people.
Thank you for supporting the Escape Your Limits podcast. If you're thinking about creating a unique and engaging fitness space to take your fitness to the next level, then we have you covered. Escape Fitness design and manufacture some of the most innovative, attractive, and durable functional training and free weight equipment used by many of the best trainers and fitness brands across the globe. As a valued listener, we are offering you a 10% discount off many of the products on our website. You can check out the full range by going to escapefitness.com and use the code dumbbell. That's escapefitness.com using the code dumbbell. That's it for me. Please enjoy the rest of this interview.
So how do you feel about digital then? It's something that everyone talks about. Some people have great experiences. Some people have just done it because everyone's had to. Where do you see the real place in it for brands like yourself?
Yeah, so we've stopped our digital at the moment, and only because we didn't have the horsepower to keep it going and then run our clubs. We've got these beautiful clubs. We want people in the clubs at the moment. But I think there is absolutely a space for the hybridization of in-person and virtual. Mm-hmm. Why not? I'm in San Diego now. I'd love to be able to do, my yoga class with my yoga teacher down here, sort of thing, right? So I think there is a future for that, for sure. I don't know what it looks like, though. I think people are just happy to be back in person at the moment,
right.
And we'll find a space, I don't know if you've been speaking to anyone from the nightclub scene, bar scene, because that's interesting to see what's going on with their spaces as well,
Yeah.
And what they're finding is, I find this fascinating, is that the clubs are opening, busier than ever, but their drink sales are lower than before.
Interesting.
Kids aren't going out drinking like they used to. Maybe they're not as conditioned as they were, I don't know, but there's just these different trends that are coming out at the moment as we're seeing in people's lifestyle.
That's an interesting one, yeah. About not... I wonder what's behind that. I've noticed I'm conscious about my drinking, more from a health perspective, really.
And why is that? What made you realize that?
Well, levels and aura, to be honest. Those are the two
your aura
things.
and your levels.
Yeah, I hate getting a bad score. I'm almost like thinking, should I take? And I have taken. I've had a few big nights. I'm going to take this off because I'm just going to. I don't want to know what my score is.
Yeah, and the recovery takes days.
Yeah, it's terrible. And that's why I stopped drinking for 3 months, and I've kind of started a little bit, but I'm really conscious. But before, I just did it because I didn't know. I think when you know what it's doing to you, you're like, I don't know, that just that awareness sort of has a different impact. It's I don't know what I can compare it to, but even foods, with it, it's just like, okay, I'm having a bit of bread. Normally I'd just eat loads of bread if I liked it. I'd
yeah.
If I was in a place like this, I would just, and now I'm like, no, I can't do it because it's going to mess up my score. And
well, maybe and I think that's the benefit of all this. So it creates an awareness, but then it's an accountability as well. So suddenly you think twice about doing something because, we're up against it. Go to any supermarket that's not a Whole Foods or a Trader Joe's. Maybe Joe's. The cereal aisle, right? It's just rows of sugar.
Yeah.
And preservatives throughout the whole thing. We're up against it. So if you're thinking twice about things and you've got things that are apps on your phone that are making you, make better decisions for your health, that's good.
Yeah.
That's what we need to do.
But it's also quite scary that I didn't even realize how bad certain things are. There's the things that are bad, but then there's the things that are sort of dressed up to be medium healthy, and they're terrible.
Yeah, right.
And you can realize how people can spend years and years of their life thinking they're doing really, really well, and they're on course to sort of have potential problem when
because they don't know.
No.
And that's where so education and awareness and how we can measure that so we can see it, and then what do we do about it? Because I think that's where we as an industry can help, because there's a lot of information out there, but people need like a plan and action, and how can we assist them and help them to get there? Because one thing to have these stats, but now what do I do?
Right. Yeah.
And I think that's where we can come in as an industry. And so I don't think there's not this training out there at the moment, but I see an education coming out in the future where it helps coaches read these different apps. Heart rate variability, what does it mean?
Right.
All of that stuff. There's a guy out of the UK called Oliver Patrick, and he's got a company called Future Practice, and he's out ahead of this. He's a pioneer in delivering this education to coaches and bridging that medical fitness gap. It's pretty cool.
What do you think about the position for health club brands like a Midtown to actually be educating, and I don't know whether you do this or not, but like we do with podcasts or any other medium, you know, like actually educating your clients about certain subjects. So instead of having a personal trainer goes on a workshop to learn nutrition or something, that your members actually are learning small chunks of information that will be valuable to them.
Yes. So pre-COVID, we had launched a series called the Live Better series, and we just closed it down due to horsepower during the pandemic. We'll pull that up again, and I can see now that being a virtual thing, because we would do it live and would hit different, every month would have a different topic. Say it was blood pressure or sleep, health-related stuff. You know, it wasn't building bigger biceps or teaching you how to lift, because we would do that. And I could see clubs or us doing more of that, but virtually. In the evening, so you sit at home, you're having your dinner, and we can do that from one place out to all of our clubs. Mm-hmm. So I think, you know, when you talk about virtual channels, that's where I see the benefit in the future is things like that. So it's not just exercise classes, it's information and education.
Yeah, content business. Yeah.
To people. But you've got to have the experts that can deliver that. Yeah. And that goes back to the first part, which we started this conversation, was the education coming in now. Is that giving our coaches entering the industry the right information and education?
Don't you think it's funny that when we mention social media, but if you're on Instagram or TikTok or even YouTube, particularly YouTube, like there are PTs that have left a Midtown as an example or whatever, and they're in good shape and they've built a good following, and they have become the go-to place for education. Yep. They've just nominated themselves that I'm going to be that guy or girl. Because they can, yeah. And then I guess you've got these big organizations like yourself that, you know, huge resources, hiring teams of trainers, investing significant amount of money in education. But how do you get seen as the credible source as opposed? And I'm not saying it's wrong for your trainers to be that source.
No, I get it.
They should do, but it's, you know, how do you become that brand of where people go to say, oh, I want to go to Midtown to learn and to find out about all these things?
Yeah, good call. So this is a project that we've built out over the last sort of 13 months. We've called it our coaching battle plan. We've looked at all elements of our coaches in the industry. We really reflected. We stood back because, like all the other clubs around the world, the hardest people to bring back were our coaches.
Right.
For us, instructors, not a problem. It was our personal trainers. We call our personal trainers coaches.
Okay.
You know, right? I train my dog. I coach the human being. You know, so they're coaches, right? But what we realized though is that there's these gaps, and not only in education but security. Right. So we did a lot of research into other club companies' coaching models throughout the US and internationally. We spoke to ISSA and ACE and NASM and these governing bodies and that what are you guys noticing and what models are out there, and most of them are around the same thing. Coaches are paid by the amount of revenue they bring in. There is a eat what you catch mentality. Mm-hmm. How many coaches do you see entering the industry that are 35 and older? Not many. Not many, right? How many stay in there? Not many. There's not much security. So the model was broken before COVID.
Right.
Industry stats say there's an 80% turnover rate of coaches per year. So for every 10 coaches you recruit, 8 are going to leave. That's a broken model, right? And so something was broken. So we looked at this and thought, how can we change this? So we built out what we call the coaching battle plan. We totally changed our criteria. This is live in our clubs now. We have taken out revenue completely. What we did is we built our coaching battle plan and our educational pathway and coach criteria based around the behaviors we wanted in our club. And our goal is to get more of our good people in front of members, right? So how we commission them and pay them now on performance is about how engaged they are in the club.
Wow.
So we now have coaches, and this is something else interesting as well, because we recruit first and foremost on core values, not on your CV. Core values. Always. Don't look at the CV till we've tackled the core values.
How do you find out? How do you do that? Just in an interview, you just ask them?
Yeah. We've brought out there's different questions based around our core values as a company, and I think that's really what's held us together in the last 2 years. Why we're in a strong place now, is because when we shut down, we had a pretty good organizational structure and strong organizational health and culture within our company. So coming out, it felt good because we recruit on core values. That's how we build our team, right? So when we look at that scale, that coach criteria, ours is based on engagement and education. Now, the engagement piece is any hours you work in the club. So right now, we have top coaches that are working in our restaurants. So our restaurant in Chicago club is called Chromium. I was in the other day, and one of the coaches, Blake, served me and my partner. Fantastic.
Really?
He's then coaching. I went in 2 days later, he's working at the front desk. All of those hours add up for him being the highest rated coach in the club. Right? Which is different. Here's the thing, we lowered our threshold for getting full-time benefits because that's what they want, security and benefits and holiday and vacation pay and medical and all that stuff that in the US is hard to get, the stability. And they don't just earn that through doing PT now, they're involved in the club. So if you've got someone with the right core values that's really great with people and they're in the restaurant and down at the front desk, hey, good to see you again, Matt. Yeah, we'll be training in an hour, I've just got to finish up here. Who cares? Right?
Wow.
Now, the coaches that have been doing it a long time and have got big clientele bases, yeah, they just do that. Good on them. But these other coaches that are starting out, they can move different areas. So we changed that, and then we looked at our education, which is what we've been touching on with you, right? Is we partnered with Pivotal Coaching, Scott Hobson and Haley Hollander, to build out a proprietary internal Midtown training that has been CEC approved through NASM, ACE, and ISSA. And it's all based around our core values and our behaviors, and motivation, mindset, behavioral change, all that stuff. And movement's the smallest chapter. Okay, and we've based it into 2 levels. The first one is foundations of growth. Oh my goodness, foundations of growth, and the next one is next level coaching. Now we reached out to the Gray Institute, Exos, Precision Nutrition. Pivotal Coaching, ISSA, and we told them about this. They loved it so much they're on board as well. So they are now part of our educational pathway. And they give us free seminars each month and stuff because we're thinking this way. When we talk them through the criteria and how we want to create more, our goal is to create as many full-time coaches as possible and career pathways for coaches. My goal is to see a lot of coaches my age and older. That's my goal, right? And once these educational academies heard that, they're like, we're in. So I think that's cool. So that's part of our coaching battle plan. Now, on top of that, we've teamed up with ISSA, who are phenomenal, by the way. And they've given us their Coach PT cert, which they would have pretty much given it to us for free. But I want some skin in the game. So we offer that to any of our associates. I don't care if you work in housekeeping, lifeguard, front of house, wherever, right? You can go through that. And then we'll put you on the floor as what we call a coach on duty, while you're going through your training period, paying you. And then we put you through our internal training that we've just developed, and off you go. Yeah, so far, so good.
And how do the economics stack up, or is it still too soon to tell?
What do you mean?
Well, so it's a little bit unorthodox compared to what...
It's completely unorthodox. So I've got to speak about it tomorrow, so I don't know how we'll get on.
Yeah, and I suppose probably because of the financial side of things is kind of like, well, the way it's done at the moment, I get why it makes sense, and you're killing what you eat, but you kind of know how people perform and they're getting paid based on that. But whereas you're sort of saying, well, look, we'll kind of support you, we'll take you in, we'll train you.
Do you know what?
Burn.
Do you know what? It works out better.
Really?
Do you know what we did? We had a look at our top coaches after COVID, and this light bulb moment went off. And the top coaches and the ones that came back and were engaging the most people and doing the most work for us are the ones that we'd trained up from housekeeping, who had started in housekeeping or reception. One of our top coaches in the company throughout the whole country at the moment started in housekeeping. And the housekeeping director called me up and said, hey, look, I've just recruited, this is about 2018-19, I've just recruited this guy, and his dream is to work in fitness one day. I said, game on, let's put him through a training. He's one of the top now, because I think that's what we've got to do. Here's the thing, and I've spoken to many of my peers that work for other club companies at the moment who are sitting there and we have candid conversations about this. It's like, because we're struggling to recruit coaches, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we are too. We're struggling. Everyone's struggling. But they're just, if you just sit there and wait for a good coach to come by, there's only 3 reasons a rock star coach will come and work at your club or my club. I've been fired, I hate my boss, or I've moved.
Right.
Why would I take all my clients and go join another club? Do you know what I'm saying? So we keep looking in the same place and getting the same result.
Right.
So we stood back and we reflected on this and go, hold on, if we recruit on core values first and foremost, why can't we train people up? Hence why we've partnered with ISSA and Exos and all these people to create these pathways. And so far, so good, right?
How long have you been doing that now?
Since January 1st.
Oh, okay.
So it's taken a long time to build it out. We had to get all our ducks in a row. And then, so it's game on.
And how long do you think it's going to take you before you really sort of see some of the fruits of that kind of investment?
Well, we already are, because, it's given us a little bit of an edge to recruiting.
Yeah, which is a big problem for a lot of people at the moment.
If we can train people up. We just need to get the word out more.
Yeah.
We just need to get the word out more, and I hope the rest of the industry also looks at this and say, let's start training or finding new ways to educate or create career pathways.
Yeah.
Because we don't do a good job of that as an industry, right?
No, I and a lot of conversations I've had, I don't know whether you feel the same, but it has this thing has this fitness, however you define it, and I think nowadays people are defining it very differently. But coming out of the pandemic, it has been undervalued, and it's like, come in, do that, run on this and pick these up, and you'll be fit.
Right.
And we all know, even though we've been doing this for a long time ourselves, many years, decades, and it's like there's a lot to learn about it. There's a lot.
We've only just scratched the surface, I think, and that's why we've got to be more curious as an industry, and we've got to be more open to outside, things that are happening in the medical world or wherever else. The wellness space or whatever that is, hospitality as well. And how can we take some of those ingredients into our clubs to create more experiential spaces? I mean, the boutique studios did it, and then clubs have sort of copied that and done different variations of that, but how can we take it a step further?
Right, yeah. The other thing that I don't know what your experience was, but during the pandemic, I know Chicago, they were pretty strict in terms of closing things down. Yeah. And David Minton was telling me, because I've asked a bunch of people the same question and criticised the government, for why don't they see that we're really making a difference to people's lives, and they must be crazy not to acknowledge that. But David said, which really made my mind shift, he says, well, we're terrible at providing any genuine data that they're going to take, they're going to take on board. It's like, where do you go to get that? He says most brands don't even have good quality data that they can share. And he says when we had to try and put some of these arguments together, it just doesn't exist. And so the first thing that we've got to be able to do is to demonstrate that what we do actually does make a difference.
It makes a difference.
On a very basic level. And he says we're not quite there yet.
I think, you'd be hard-pressed to find someone over the last 2 years that hasn't struggled with their mental health.
Yeah.
Hard-pressed.
Yeah.
And if someone says they haven't, they're lying.
Yeah.
Right? But what we do helps that.
Yeah, I think we know that.
We know that.
Yeah.
But we've got to get better at telling that story.
Exactly. Yeah.
And people don't come into our clubs going, oh my God, I'm so depressed. I can barely get out of bed. I'm struggling with motivation. I can't concentrate. They don't come in and say that. What do people come in and say when they join a club? When they're meeting that salesperson there? What do they say 9 times out of 10? Oh, I need to get fit.
Yeah.
Or I need to lose some weight. What they're not really saying is, I've lost my confidence. My husband and wife and I haven't been intimate for a very long time because I've put on so much weight or I've lost that connection. I get tired walking up the stairs. I can't concentrate at work. I'm less productive. They don't come in and say that, right?
No.
And I think which is why we built this program called Launch, which is aspirational driven, and we've trained up our entire sales team throughout North America to have these conversations. So they've gone through this behavioral change process of asking the right conversations, what brought you in today? What does this mean to you, and then guide the pathway through our club, through these aspirations in their journey. Then we measure their success.
That's what I was going to say. Like, are you then taking that and being able to, like, case studies, look, this is actually what's happening. So if you did need to make an argument that we're improving.
Yeah. It's hard to get the real data on this stuff, which is why all these apps that are coming together
will allow that.
We just need to give Amazon and Apple a little bit more time. But, you're seeing it now in our cardio equipment, right? Like, I've got my RFID reader, and we do a lot of work with Precor, and so my RFID reader, I tap this on, remembers my Netflix, shows me what I've done. But if we can get that more around this ecosystem of a club that, could give you these metrics and then reports on how healthy you are, or your wellness,
that might change things.
I think
it might keep you open next time they try and close you down if another pandemic happens, maybe.
Yeah, right.
Well, it's important to be able to do that.
Because the medical community have got this, right? Yeah. They can measure cholesterol and blood pressure and body fat and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
What do we measure? We measure body fat, maybe, Tanita scales and things like that. Great. Heart rate, yeah, we can measure heart rate, but you say to the average fitness professional, what are you actually looking at? They won't be able to tell you.
No.
The measure of your fitness is not how high your heart rate goes, it's how quick you recover, which is why MyZone have done an incredible job with their colours and their zones.
Yeah, they have more data than most operaters, I believe. I interviewed Mike a few months ago, and they've got some great data, but when you sit down, and I'm generalising, but most cases you sit down to people that have a number of fitness clubs, it's like, well, what can you tell me? Well, check-ins and this and that, but it's very difficult to say, well, what can you tell me about what you're doing for your members and why that is a good reason that you should stay open, because if you get people coming to you, you're going to be delivering something. I think that was the crux of David's conversation. It's like, yeah, okay, great, but if you stay open, what is it?
Yes.
What's the difference you're going to be making?
What's the difference between you and that, and Joe's gym on the corner?
Yeah.
That's why we've got a bit of a way to go.
Yeah.
And I think it's because the fitness industry is unregulated.
Yeah.
Which is a good and a bad thing in a way, because it allows you to be, there's a lot of entrepreneurial spirit about things that come out. But then Instagram, where you get all these people, you could see different viewpoints, contradictions on so many different things in fitness and wellness. Nutrition's a classic.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so people are confused. But imagine if they could go somewhere and say, hey, we'll take the guesswork out of this for you and we'll help you on your journey.
Do you think that's where you'll get this sort of medical style of business that is, they are data driven, they do have the research, and do you think that and even nutrition and technology, that will move into the fitness as opposed to fitness moving into those other areas? I can see I can see you
guys. They won't let us move into that space. So it's true. I mean, I think that's where companies like, say, Nuffield Health or Aspria in Europe, where they're building out their semi-medical suites and medical-based testings within their facilities. And, I remember when Nuffield came out with their marketing in about 2006 in bus stops in London saying, join our health clubs and we'll improve your health by this fact. And it was a fact, because at that time they were doing tests.
Right.
Because it was a fact. We can improve your blood pressure, we can improve your quality of life by doing this, this, and this. So I think we don't have anything to really say fact.
That's interesting. I didn't realise they did that, but that now when you're saying that, maybe that is something that maybe that's something that should be thought about, isn't it? Being able to add that kind of certainty to what you're doing, as opposed to we do, come in and put your sort of leggings on and we're going to have fun and which is a great thing to do, but
and I think what a lot of these wearables do, like you've got the Oura ring on, right? That just creates a lot of conversation. And I like that. So how often before you had the Oura ring, or say 10 years ago, were you sitting around with your buddies talking about sleep? Probably not getting enough because we're out partying.
Yeah.
I haven't slept enough, but really talking about sleep.
I don't know. No, not really. Because how do you know? And yeah, how do you know? And it's not until you get one of these that you realise the difference between REM and deep, and whether you're in it or you're not. And you don't know, do you?
And you look at the circadian rhythms. I mean, you're originally from the UK, right?
Yeah.
I'm from New Zealand. I never sleep as as soon as I go back home, which is not often, I sleep so well.
Really?
We're accustomed to where we were originally born, and our sleep and our circadian rhythms is very interesting. But it drives our internal metabolism and the way we are, and our hormones. It's just one thing: it's sleep, and then you've got digestion, and body temperature.
Yeah.
So we're just one piece of. We've just looked at one piece, which is movement, for so long.
Yeah.
So I now think that we're starting to enter these different areas that creates the totality of wellness.
Yeah, it makes you. For me, certainly, if I've got a busy few weeks and I want to have some fun and I want to have some workout, and so when you have all those things together, you're then starting to think, okay, well, how do I optimize this? How do I optimize my sleep? So that it all kind of comes together. Like I suppose years ago you'd just have to get up early and put up with it, and you'd stay up late and have a few drinks, and you just accept that's how you were. But I suppose now, the more you know, you're like, okay, well, if I stop here and I stop eating here and I start eating here, like even I'm doing these intermittent fasting now, which I've gotten pretty well with, actually.
Yep.
But that's helped me sleep, because I'm cutting my meals way earlier, like 2 hours before I used to. And I'm obviously not going to sleep digesting a massive meal after I've worked out.
But I think this is great. We're changing the way we look at things. Because for so long we just accepted what we were given or told, Even though our bodies were screaming at us, I'm overweight, I'm tired, I'm stressed, and I'm sore. Something's not right.
No.
And then we'd go work out more.
Well, yeah. And some of that was you actually felt you were doing the right thing as well, which is the crazy. It's like, I'm actually doing good things for myself. But
I think one of the things, though, that I'm most excited about is how quickly people have come back to the club craving that human connection. I was a bit worried for a while there that we were very isolated, very used to being isolated,
Yeah.
And I think, there's something very special when you get a studio full of people exercising together and they come out. You talk about driving the business, that's driving the business. You get that going, people stay.
So what are you coming to Cybec for then? What are you looking for the next couple of days?
To connect with people, for sure. I'm really curious to see what's new on the technology side of things, and on the wellness technology side of things.
What specifically, like just how things are, like any new devices, or how it's all being connected up? Or
I reckon I'm curious how it's been connected up.
Yeah.
Because what will happen is if everyone comes up with their little app for their piece of equipment, you're going to end up with this disjointed club full of different apps where everyone needs to have something different, right? So we've got to piece it together somehow.
Do you think that will be the role of some of the large software companies that are doing your check-ins? I don't know the names of some of them. That's not my area. But
ABC and Club Automation and CSI.
Those will be the people that will...
They could do. I don't know, but as soon as someone works out how to do it, I think they're onto something,
Or do you think it will be like an Apple, Amazon type?
Oh, they're definitely going to do it.
Right.
They are absolutely going to do it. Yes. So maybe they just come up with a system and we just buy it off them and see what they do, But they're doing it now.
Yeah.
You've got companies like NetPulse that have done it as well. NetPulse has aggregated these health and wellness apps for a long time.
Right.
eGym are doing something like that as well. So I think more of that, just seeing how we can use that. One of the things that we really dig into at Midtown is really looking at the personas and profiles of the people that come into our clubs.
Oh, interesting.
And we look at our programming based off the personas and profiles and look at their habits and time of day and stuff that they do. Whereas I think most clubs, when they devise their programs, go, I've got a good program. Here's this. I like using this kettlebell with this, right? Now we look at this. So here's our active aging. What do they like to do? Who do they hang out with? and even to the persona, and this is an actual persona that we've built many programs over, is Starbucks carrying Lululemon wearing young mum.
Right.
That's a persona. You know what time of day they come in, you know what they're interested in, and their husbands probably come once a week, but Saturdays for sure. Mm-hmm. What do we do for them? So we're backing out all of our offerings, even down to our food and beverage offering, and how we're speaking to those personas in the clubs. That's the thing that we're digging deep into at the moment. Actually, this is my role that I'm looking at within the company, is how we have these cross-departmental member experiences,
right,
and how they feed into each other to create this ecosystem of programming within the club, from our food and beverage to spa to fitness to racket sports, all the way through your personas. So we know what to recommend you next.
Well, I was with a guy a couple of weeks ago, and he basically uses a psychometric profile to do that. Really, really interesting guy. I could have talked to him for ages, but he basically looks, everyone's got a slightly different psychometric profile. And yet when we market to people and then we make recommendations, we're looking at everybody as kind of a whole. You obviously are already taking it to one level, but he's like, you like, some people want to be communicated to in this way, some people don't. Some people need to be told, some people need to be coached.
Yes.
There's a mix of things, and he was trying to use AI with some like psychology within the programming to kind of really be able to personalize that communication before, during, after.
I mean, the advertising agencies have been doing this for a while, right?
Right.
Like,
Facebooks and everything.
Incredible.
I think that's where it comes from.
But we've been doing this, I think my marketing team will get me for this one if I get it wrong, but I think that's why, in fact, I know that's why we've been successful over the last few months for sure. Mm-hmm. That we've been doing a lot of that around our marketing and advertisements on social, with different campaigns, reaching different people using personas, and exactly what you just said there. What are they interested in? What speaks to them?
Right, yeah.
Right? Yeah, it's quite interesting. And then when they come in, and our launch program, which is the first thing they see and guides their whole sales process, is these 18 aspirations that you pick. And we keep a very detailed record on the aspirations and who picks them. And different personas pick different aspirations, and you can start to match it up. And like Find My Circle, which is the aspirations are very visual, with keywords over the top. So what speaks to you is either the visual or the word. And Find My Circle is some people sitting around having a coffee, and it says Find My Circle. That was sort of like halfway down pre-COVID. Now it's at the top. Wow. People are coming back saying Find My Circle. Live longer, all day energy, mood boost. It's interesting, right? So this is what people are interested in now.
That's fascinating. I know there are some clever companies. Ian from Keep Me AI, I know he's doing some cool stuff. But I suppose when you look at the amount of money that's being spent by the Facebooks, TikToks, and how much they know and how they recommend things, I suppose if you could take that technology and put that into a regular fitness club, how powerful would that be, in terms of being able to understand people and recommend things? And
I mean, this opens up Pandora's box. It's another conversation, but the metaverse, whatever that is in the future, right? So we've been digging in and researching and looking and trying to understand, the fitness metaverse and different things. We were going to actually buy a club and put a Midtown in the fitness metaverse, but we've paused on that just for the short term.
Just on that one, why were you going to do that? Because I still don't even understand. I know people have done it, but is it a marketing thing or
well, we just don't know where it's going to go.
Okay.
So at some point there is going to be 3D glasses. You're going to have this on and you're going to live in a 3D space. That's going to happen.
Okay.
It's going to happen, right? Yeah. It's going to happen. So these worlds where you can, and I think it hits a different, like we go exercise, right? But the gaming community and the generation coming up, they spend so much time, behind a computer and doing this stuff. So how can what we couldn't work out, and I think it's too early, it's far too early, so we're going to pause a little, but we're still going to stay close to it, is how does that relate to our box and mortar? How does that relate to us? Yeah. So I think there's the concept of points, or you earn money or cryptocurrencies of some form, so you can monetize you to be active by doing things where you earn points to go into that club. And you can have a membership to go into that club, and you wear your goggles and you'd see Midtown on the high street. You'd go in there and you could be on that treadmill or lift weights and the more cryptocurrencies you have, or the more coins you use, you can get different entrances into classes or yoga classes. You earn and spend.
Okay.
I don't know where
Privileges.
it's going.
And
Yeah.
Have you heard of those guys called Gym Bros? I think they're in Australia. Have you heard of them?
No.
So they've got a bricks and mortar club, and then they've got a metaverse one, I guess. And it's similar. So I may mess this up. I was reading about it, but you can basically buy a Gym Bro, which is a kind of a digital thing, and then you get a membership, and there's a link between the club and the metaverse. I don't exactly know, and I wanted to try and get them to explain.
What we were looking at as well.
Okay. I still can't figure out exactly how it worked, but I do get the gaming business and how big that is, and I watch my son, and he's definitely living a different world, most of the time. But I just can't figure out how workout and this thing connect. I'm sure somebody does know about it. But.
Well, actually, I got asked to do a presentation on wellness to a whole lot of gamers about 6 months ago on Twitch. I'd never presented on Twitch before. It was quite interesting. But all these gamers that are quite sedentary, they play for hours sitting at home and talking about wellness and activity. And it was quite interesting that I even got asked to do that. But I think that's who we're speaking to.
Yeah.
Right, in the future.
Yeah.
But, these 3D spaces, I've put a lot of thought into this, and I'm sure maybe you have as well, but, when you're wearing these goggles and you're in a space, you could do some incredible things. Like, imagine doing Zumba on the beach in Rio. Or, you could do yoga in the Tibetan mountains.
Yeah.
Fantastic. But I think you need to be in like a space, a pod, because if I started moving, I'm going to walk into something.
Well, no, but you can't. Like my son uses the Oculus, and so you can. You've got you draw out your area around you, so you can kind of see, but you can't see, and then you become this sort of an avatar, a bit like the Avatar movie. So I could kind of imagine that you could have a yoga studio where we all know where we are. But when you put these on, like you're who you want to be, you can create your own digital version, and I can. And we could be in this space. I could kind of see where it could go. I think the glasses and that have got to move on a little bit, but arguably...
Yeah, we're not there yet with those.
No.
It's going to happen.
Yeah.
It's going to happen, and I think it'll be that concept of alone together.
Yes, yeah, that's right.
Alone together. I'm at home on my own, but I'm sort of with a lot of people. And so we need to start thinking how that affects us in our physical bricks and mortar facilities,
right?
Because that's going to come at some point. I mean, Les Mills are doing it with their body combat classes and the Oculus glasses. That's rolled out. They're doing that now. So I think we'll see more companies trying things. But it's curious. I'm curious as to what happens next.
Yeah.
In that space,
But there's certainly a lot of from what we've said today. There's the health side, which seems as though that could be huge. That sounds like we just scratched the surface on that. Yeah. And then there's what we're talking about now, the metaverse and gaming and how that all plays a part. So it's an exciting industry to be in at the moment.
It's so exciting, and it's dynamic, and we've been hit hard, hit super hard. But there's a lot of opportunities that have come out of it. A lot of opportunities have come out of it, and I think it's maybe given us a shake-up that we also needed as well.
So my final question, because this was going to be a 15-minute interview, but
it was good fun.
It's been a very good conversation. But so how does a business and how do you at Midtown decide, because there probably is so much opportunity, you've got digital, you've got bricks and mortar, you've got all these things. How do you decide what is the right thing to, and how do you as your team sort of say, okay, this is why we've passed on the metaverse at the moment, but this is why we've done this. How do you go about making those decisions in a very uncertain world?
We have a defined strategy on what we're doing, where we're going, right? And our promise or our promise or our purpose is to inspire people to transform their lives. We anchor to that every time. It's like a rallying cry for us, right? And we have these 9-month thematic goals. 9-month thematic goals, and the whole company, from the owner all the way down, all the way through the organization, do everything we can to focus on that goal.
Right.
We don't, everything, like that, when someone comes up with an idea, we'll go, does it align with that? You know, a thematic goal pre-COVID was...
What is it called? Thematic?
Thematic goal. THEMATIC. That's my accent, probably. Thematic goal.
And what is
or we call it a quest. It's our quest. You know, a 9-month quest. These goals, these mini goals that roll up and get us on that direction. And like pre-COVID, one was keep new members longer. It was all about the new members. Our retention rate is higher. Our retention rate is good. Our early stage retention wasn't great. We found through analysing the data, we had an early stage retention problem. So we created this quest, which was a 9-month quest. Do everything we can. All our programming strategy, horsepower from IT to marketing was focused on that. At the end of it, tick.
Right.
What's our next thematic goal? You know?
And how did that get into your business? Because that's quite smart. I guess a lot of companies' challenge is that they have that lack of focus. They've got some great ideas, but it's trying to do too many things all at once and not really succeeding at
I think it's important to look at organizational health. We've used the Table Group as a consultancy company. Patrick Lencioni, who wrote the 7 Dysfunctions of a
team.
And,
the team, right, yeah.
And The Advantage, his book The Advantage, which is incredible. We've used that company as a consultancy company pre-COVID, which set us up nicely, and we just follow that structure and the organizational structure.
Nice.
I don't know if that answered your question, the original one, but it got to where we are.
How did it get into your business? Yeah, that's quite smart. So you basically took in some external guidance to help
us align where we're going,
right.
And then we've run the plays. Yeah. And it works.
Does it take a lot of discipline to sort of stay?
There's a lot of peer-to-peer accountability,
right.
And everything is around having a base of vulnerability-based trust. So we have some really harsh meetings, and we pull up each other's weaknesses, and there's tears, and there's anger, and at the end of it, you're hugging, but you're aligned.
Right.
And we don't leave a meeting till we're aligned. We fist to five and we're aligned on the right direction. And I think, and that all comes down to recruiting on core values.
Okay, yeah.
You get the right people with the right core values that are bought into our belief and our purpose and our promise, and then it makes it much easier to run a business, right?
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah.
We'll have to come out to your club. We'll have to have another conversation, Richard.
Please, come out
anytime. Let's get to the bar then, I think.
Okay, thanks, Bill.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Hey, I hope you enjoyed this podcast. If you did, then please go over to iTunes and subscribe to the Escape Your Limits podcast. Leave a review, leave a comment. It really would help us a lot to continue to keep these going.